Welcome to another episode of Heffron on History. Today, we are going to talk about one of the most technologically important improvements in transportation, cost of goods, ease of transportation in the United States, the Erie Canal. Next on Heffron on History. You should take out a spirally notebook, turn to a shiny new page in your spirally notebook, take out a writing utensil, and write this down. The essential question for the Erie Canal is, how did the Erie Canal impact transportation and costs in the early 1800s? Now, there's this concept called the American system that is going to be developing throughout the early 1800s, and the concept is goes along with industrialization. So industrialization begins on the other side of the planet, but America really embraces industrialization. It's going to change the world. And the American system is an idea that the politicians came up with, that in order for America to really truly benefit from industrialization, we need to have improvements like canals and bridges, roads, eventually railroads, and all these different things should be paid for by the U.S. government because it benefits everybody in the country. That's the concept of the American system. And one of the big keys for the American system is the development of the Erie Canal. So let's examine the Erie Canal. All right, so when we're talking about the Erie Canal, I always start off the discussion in my classroom the same way. I say, let's imagine, if you will, that my name is George Chicago, and the year is 1825, and I live along the shores of Lake Michigan in this little teeny tiny speck of a settlement called Chicago. Now, realistically, the Chicago was born from Fort Dearborn, but let's just imagine. Use your imagination, if you will. I'm the first guy there, and I decide I'm going to create this big city someday, and it's going to be named after me, and I'm going to be fabulously wealthy and famous. And I built a beautiful house on the shores of Lake Michigan, and I decide, you know what, to celebrate the completion of my house, I think I'm going to build a hotel so that I can get visitors who come to visit me and spend some money with me and make me rich, right? And my wife is a beautiful musician, and she says to me, "Hey, George, how's about we get ourselves a piano, right?" So I said a piano would be a wonderful idea. Okay, so I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to find the most beautiful, spectacular piano in the world and have it brought to Chicago. So I walk in, I found a piano store, and it's just spectacular, right? And there's pianos all over the place, and I found one that is just perfect. I found one that is mahogany and ivory and ebony keys, and it's just gold trim, and it's just the most beautiful piano in the world. And I says to the salesman, "Can you deliver it?" And they say, of course we can deliver this. That's what we do. Sure, we can deliver it. And I says, this is going to be great. My wife is going to be so happy. We're going to have a piano. We're going to have some live music in the living room. It's going to be wonderful. And so I says, it took me a while to get here. So, don't deliver it for a couple weeks because I got to get home. I got some other business to do, and it's going to be a while. Nice. And the salesman says, that's great. So it comes time to deliver the piano, and the salesman is thinking, this is like a couple blocks away probably, right? And he looks at the invoice there, and it says Chicago. What the heck is a Chicago? I've never heard of this place before. Where is this? So they go down to the library, and they look at they go and look at a map, and they say, oh my gosh, this is way over here. It's like half a country away. How in the world am I going to get a piano from New York to Chicago? And this, I ask my students, right? And I say, I want somebody to volunteer to show me how you're going to get a piano from New York to Chicago. And almost always they do this. They just draw a line. I said, well, that's lovely. That's just a lovely idea. There's a problem with that. The Appalachian Mountains. We talked about that just the other day, right? The Appalachian Mountains are there. You're not going to take my piano across the Appalachian Mountains. It'll be absolutely destroyed. And then somebody usually says, well, Mr. Heffron, isn't there like the Cumberland Gap? And I says, yes, there absolutely is the Cumberland Gap. And if you could get the piano to the Cumberland Gap, that would be wonderful. But there's no road from New York to the Cumberland Gap. Yeah, there's the Wilderness Road through the Appalachian Mountains, but then even if you got it to the other side, there's no road going to Chicago. Chicago's a brand new city. I'm the only person living there, right? So there's no road. How are you going to get this piano to me? And then somebody usually says, well, that's Lake Michigan, right? Yeah. So it's on the Great Lakes, right? Yeah. Why don't you just go up here into the Great Lakes and to Chicago? And I said, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. My students are the smartest. They come up with a solution every single year. This is brilliant. And I said, there's a little problem. There's one little teeny tiny minor little problem, right? Cheer. I said, does anybody know what's between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario? And they said, there's a river. Yes, and it's called the Niagara River. Now, does anybody know what's on the Niagara River? And it's usually one of my geography students that figured this out. Niagara Falls? That's right. If you were to take this path, once you got to the end of Lake Ontario and you have to get up to Lake Erie, you have to go up Niagara Falls. That's not going to happen. You are not going to take my piano up Niagara Falls. So that's a great idea, but there's no way to get to the upper Great Lakes from the ocean, right? So then, usually we talk about some different things, and usually somebody says, why don't you go this way, go up the Mississippi River? And I said, my students are so smart. They figured this out. This is just the greatest idea. They are brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. There's a little problem with this. I said, you could come up the Mississippi River and you could get into the Illinois River, but it's going to stop. It's not going to go all the way to Chicago. And they said, oh, okay. And then they look at a map and they say, well, we could go up a little bit further to the Wisconsin River. That would be a great idea, except the Wisconsin River doesn't go to the Great Lakes. And they said, well, the Mississippi goes up here. So yeah, it does, but it doesn't go to the Great Lakes. You see, the problem is the Mississippi River watershed and the Great Lakes watershed never meet. The closest they ever get is right about here outside of my hometown of Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I think Green Bay Road is the dividing line, and it can't be. I think it's about 3 miles between the watershed, the subcontinental divide it's called, and Lake Michigan. That's the closest it gets, and there's no navigable river in that area that will take a piano. So I said, so there's no way to do it. And they said, well, how? Then it's impossible. That's right. Until 1825. So the year is 1825, and the governor of New York, his name is DeWitt Clinton, is celebrating the opening of the Erie Canal. He wanted the United States of America to pay for this, and they refused to pay for this. So New York State paid for this. New York City put some money into this, and it is a canal that connects the Hudson River and goes around Niagara Falls, and it gets to the Great Lakes. Now my piano can simply go up the Hudson River onto the Erie Canal, where the travel is fast and smooth and cheap. And this waterway opens up possibilities to get to the Great Lakes and all the cities on the Great Lakes, whether they're Duluth or whether they are Chicago or Milwaukee or Detroit. All the cities that are anywhere near the Great Lakes are gonna explode in size. Chicago, in particular, is going to become the second largest city in the country for a while, anyway. New York is going to become the first largest city. To this day, it's still the largest city because of the Erie Canal. Everything that goes on the Erie Canal is going to end up in New York. Everything that goes through the Erie Canal is probably going to end up in Chicago. Once the railroad is invented and created, they're going to converge on Chicago, because already the end of the Great Lakes system is Chicago, right? It's Buffalo, New York, and it's Albany, New York, are the two ends of the canal itself. But the two major hubs at either end of the Erie Canal system are Chicago and New York. It's going to make travel on the Great Lakes easy and fast and inexpensive. It's going to make transportation of products fast and smooth and easy and cheap. And that is the importance of the Erie Canal. Until next time, have fun on history.